Please welcome Cory Harrison.
Good morning, everyone. Can you believe we've made it to Friday? It's good, right? This morning, I'd like to take just a couple of minutes to tell you three very quick stories. The first story that I want to tell you takes place about 1 year ago. The second story I want to tell you takes place about 5,000 years ago. And the third story I want to tell you takes place about 2,000 years ago. And then I'd like to give just a couple of thoughts that I hope will tie all those in together as we approach our morning about social responsibility. So it's about a year ago that I was meeting with a friend of mine who is a counselor, and I was just walking through some things that I was dealing with and struggling with, and I said to him, is it normal for people to feel like, and he stopped me, and he said, is it normal for who? And I said, you know, when people are going through, is it normal that they feel like, and he stopped me and he said, Cory, we're not here to talk about other people, are we? We're here to talk about you and what's the right next thing for you. So the real question is it normal for you? Now, somewhere around 5,000 years ago, there's an ancient Hebrew story that's passed down in oral tradition and now in written tradition about this guy named Jacob. And in this particular part of the story, Jacob has found himself wandering out in a desert. And at some point of the night, he's met by an angel, and he gets in a wrestling match. Now, the story's never really clear as if it were an angel or if it's a man or some sort of divine messenger. But whatever it is, Jacob gets in a wrestling match with this man. And as he does, this match goes on throughout the night, hour after hour, until daybreak, when finally the man says to Jacob, let me go. And Jacob says to him, I will not let you go until you bless me. And the man looks at Jacob and he says, what is your name? Now that story, that question has a bit of history to it for Jacob. You see, because earlier in the story, when we meet Jacob, he's standing before his father, pretending to be his older brother Esau, so that he can steal the inheritance and the blessing. You see, in that culture, the older brother always got the inheritance, always got the blessing. And so Jacob comes up with this scheme where he would dress up like his older brother, who was a little bit hairier than him and was a hunter. And so he puts on all of these furs and he smells very gamey. And he walks into his father, who is practically blind at the time. And his father says, who are you? And Jacob says, it is I, Esau. The first time we meet Jacob, or one of the earliest times that we meet Jacob, he's pretending to be somebody he's not. And so Esau gets wind of this and is very angry, and Esau is out to kill Jacob over it, and Jacob's on the run. And you see, at this time, your name wasn't just words. Often today we have a name and we're not even really sure where it came from or if it has any significance. But in the ancient Near East, your name was significant. It was indicative of who you were. It was your character. It was the very fiber of your being. And so when Jacob is wrestling with this man, and this man says to him, what is your name? The man is essentially asking, who are you? How much of life's pain comes from not knowing the answer to that question? 2,000 years ago, there's a story that's passed down through Christian tradition about a time that Jesus was eating with his disciples. And he looks across the table at one of his disciples named Peter, and he's telling Peter about his responsibility to care for the people around him. And he says to Peter these words, Peter, feed my sheep. Sort of this kind of Hebrew way of saying, take care of those in the community. Take care of those around you. You see, Jesus has given Peter this divine calling, this responsibility. He's given him a job. He's given him something to do. He's given him a responsibility for the society around him, or in the Y, as we would call it, he's given him a social responsibility. And what is Peter's response to this divine calling, to this holy moment? Peter looks across the table and he points to another disciple and he says, well, what about him? And Jesus says to Peter, what is it to you what happens to him? You follow me. Now, if you're anything like me, you can kind of identify with Peter just a little bit, especially at a conference like this where there's so many amazing people and so many great speakers up on this stage and so many interesting things happening at Wise. It's easy for us to kind of look at this and realize that we have a unique calling. You have a certain responsibility that is uniquely yours. You've been called to take care of those in your community. And what can happen is we can often start looking around the room and asking all the wrong questions. What about her? Or what about him? Or what about them? And sometimes we can feel like, man, I just don't have what they have. The reality of our world is some people are smarter, some people have more money, some people have a different body type, but we can never be our true selves if we're constantly measuring ourselves against those around us. Am I right about that? There's this moment by the river where Jacob goes face to face with the man he's been wrestling with, the man who said to him, what is your name? And Jacob looks at him and he says, I'm Jacob. Jacob's wrestled. He's battled. He's felt defeated. And he's tired of trying to be somebody he's not. And Jacob says, no longer am I going to do that. I'm going to be me. And it's at that point in this ancient story that God pulls Jacob into his divine destiny to care for those that are around him. It's almost as if God says, are you ready to be you? Because we got a lot of work to do here. And so today, one of my hopes that you take out of this message, that you take from this conference, is to find who you really are. Because there's a lot of people in the room that we can compare ourselves to. So this is my hope for you. May you do the hard work of the soul to discover your true self. May you and I find the unique path that we've been called on to care for those around us. And may you and I become comfortable in our own skin. Thanks for listening to me this morning.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Emily Holthouse, and I'm the National Director for Social Responsibility here at YUSA. I'm hoping you're having a wonderful time at this